Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading cosmic horror related stories every single day. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. I never expected to inherit anything from Uncle Gerald. The last time I saw him, I was 13 years old, and he was already the family weirdo everyone whispered about at Thanksgiving. He lived alone in that old Victorian house in Pinewood, never married, never had kids, and barely left his property for the last decade of his life. When the lawyer called to tell me he'd left me the house, my first thought was that it would be a pain to sell. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. The house was bigger than I remembered, all dark wood and high ceilings that made every footstep echo. Most of the furniture was gone. Uncle Gerald had apparently sold off almost everything in his final years. What remained was basic stuff: a mattress on the floor in one bedroom, a kitchen table with one chair, a couch that sagged in the middle. The realtor said I should clear it out and put it on the market fast. Property values in Pinewood were decent, and the bones of the house were solid. But I'd just lost my job. My apartment lease was up. I figured I could stay here for a few months while I looked for work, save some money on rent. The house was paid off, so all I had to worry about were utilities. The first 2 nights were quiet. Uncomfortable, but quiet. I slept on Uncle Gerald's old mattress and tried not to think about him dying in this place. The 3rd night, I woke up at almost 3 in the morning to a sound I couldn't identify. Scratching. Not like an animal scratching at a door, more like wood scraping against wood. It came from somewhere downstairs, rhythmic and patient. I lay there for probably 10 minutes listening to it before I finally got up to investigate. The hallway downstairs was dark. I'd been meaning to replace some of the burnt-out bulbs, but hadn't gotten around to it yet. I used my phone's flashlight to navigate, following the sound to the hallway that connected the living room to the back of the house. That's when I saw the door. I'd walked through this hallway probably 20 times in the 3 days I'd been there. I would have noticed the door. But there it was, plain as anything, a wooden door that didn't match any of the others in the house. The scratching had stopped. I stood there, shining my phone light on it, trying to convince myself I was still asleep. The door had no doorknob, just a smooth, wooden surface with a faint outline where a knob should have been. When I reached out to touch it, it swung open silently. I expected a closet, maybe stairs to a basement I didn't know about. What I found instead was my childhood bedroom. Not a room that looked like my childhood bedroom. My actual bedroom from when I was 8 years old. The same blue carpet, the same dinosaur posters on the wall, the same collection of action figures lined up on the shelf. Even the way the late afternoon sunlight came through the window was exactly right. I heard my mother's voice calling from downstairs. "David, dinner's ready." I stumbled backward through the doorway and fell on my ass in Uncle Gerald's hallway. The door swung shut. When I got my breathing under control and opened it again, there was just darkness inside. A closet, empty except for a single wire hanger. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it had been a dream, some kind of stress-induced hallucination brought on by unemployment and grief and sleeping in a dead man's house. But the door was still there in the daylight, and when I worked up the courage to open it again, I wasn't looking at an empty closet. I was looking at my high school graduation. I could see myself at 18, sitting in the auditorium in that uncomfortable folding chair, wearing my cap and gown. The principal was at the podium, giving a speech I barely remembered. I watched myself fidget with my tassel. Looking bored, I stepped through. Nobody reacted to me. I walked right past my younger self, and he didn't even glance up. I waved my hand in front of his face. Nothing. It was like I wasn't there. I was a ghost in my own memory, invisible and insubstantial. When I stepped back through the door, I was in the hallway again. I checked my phone. Only 3 minutes had passed. That's when I understood what Uncle Gerald had left me. It wasn't just a house. Over the next few days, I tested it obsessively. The door only appeared at night, always in the same spot in the hallway. When I opened it, I could think about any moment from my past, and that's where it would lead. I could walk into my 7th birthday party, my first day of college, the afternoon I learned to ride a bike. Any moment I could remember, the door would show me. I couldn't interact with anything. I was just an observer, watching my life play out like I was looking at old home videos. Except I could walk around, see things from different angles, notice details I'd forgotten or never paid attention to in the first place. At first, it was amazing. I went back to good moments. My first kiss, the day my dog was still a puppy, Christmas mornings when I still believed in Santa. But good memories get boring after a while. You can only watch yourself blow out birthday candles so many times before it starts to feel hollow. That's when I started going to the darker places. My father's funeral. I was 12. I watched myself sit in the front pew, trying not to cry, failing. I'd forgotten how young I looked, how small, the night Emily left me in college. I watched us argue in her dorm room, watched her tell me she'd met someone else, watched myself try to hold it together and fall apart the moment I got outside. The day I got fired from my last job. My boss called me into his office, and I knew what was coming before he said a word. I watched myself nod along, pretending I understood, pretending it was fine. I kept going back to these moments. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I watched them enough times, they'd hurt less. They didn't. That's when I started noticing the figure. He was in the background of my father's funeral, just a man in dark clothes standing at the back of the church. I didn't remember seeing him there, but memory is weird. Maybe he'd been a friend of my dad's, I didn't know. Except he was at Emily's dorm too. Through the window, across the quad, just standing there. And at my office, on the day I got fired, in the parking lot, watching. I started looking for him deliberately. Went back to earlier memories. He was at my high school graduation, sitting in the back row of the auditorium, at my 13th birthday party, visible through the kitchen window. My first day of middle school, standing across the street from the bus stop. The further back I went, the more I found him. My 5th birthday, my first day of kindergarten. Every single memory I visited, he was there somewhere, always watching, always still. I stopped looking for work, stopped eating regular meals. Every night, I went through the door and searched my past, trying to find the first time he appeared. I had to know when it started. I had to understand. My earliest memory was from when I was 3 years old. playing in a sandbox at a park my mum used to take me to. I remembered the texture of the sand, the bright yellow bucket I was using. When I went back to it through the door, he was there too, behind a tree at the edge of the playground, watching a 3-year-old play in the sand. I was being watched my entire life. Every moment I'd ever lived, this thing had been there. I tore apart Uncle Gerald's house looking for answers, found his journal hidden under the floorboards in the attic. The early entries were normal enough. He'd discovered the door about 10 years before he died. Same as me. Same experimentation. Same obsession. But then, the entries changed. The door showed me the truth about what we are, he wrote. I thought I was visiting memories. I was wrong. So wrong. The later entries were barely legible, his handwriting deteriorating into frantic scrawls. They're not memories. We're not remembering. We're trapped. Every moment exists forever. I'm still living every second I ever lived. We all are. And something knows. Something watches all of it. The final entry was just one sentence, written so hard the pen had torn through the paper. I can't stop opening the door. I should have run then, should have left the house and never come back. But I had to know what he meant. I had to see for myself. I picked a random memory, nothing special. A Tuesday morning, from when I was 16, I was eating breakfast before school, cereal. I'd been reading something on my phone, just a completely ordinary moment. I never would have remembered if I wasn't looking for it. I stepped through the door and watched my 16-year-old self eat cereal. That's when I saw the other me. He was standing in the corner of the kitchen. Another David, not my 16-year-old self, eating cereal, me, current me, except he was faded, like someone had turned down his opacity in Photoshop. He was just standing there, watching the breakfast scene. Then I looked closer. There were dozens of them, different versions of me, all faded to varying degrees, all standing in different spots around the kitchen. Some looked my current age, some looked older, some looked younger, like they'd come here from different points in their lives. All of them were silent. All of them were watching my 16-year-old self eat cereal. I ran back through the door. I tried a different memory. My first kiss, age 15. I stepped through expecting to see myself and Amanda behind the school gym, nervous and awkward. There were hundreds of me watching, layer upon layer of faded copies, standing shoulder to shoulder, all focused on that one moment. Some were crying, some were smiling, some just stared with empty expressions. I went to my college graduation. Thousands, so many versions of myself that they blurred together into a crowd of ghosts, all watching 18-year-old me walk across that stage. Every single moment of my life had been watched by future versions of myself. All of my past moments existed simultaneously, somewhere, somehow, and I realized with a sick certainty that Uncle Gerald had been right. These weren't memories I was visiting. Memories are things that happened and ended, things that exist only in our minds. But I could walk into these moments. I could see them from different angles, notice new details. They were still happening. Every second I'd ever lived was still happening, somewhere, forever. And every version of me who'd found the door had come back to watch. When I returned to the present, he was there, the figure in dark clothes, standing at the end of the hallway, next to the door. For 3 weeks, he'd never moved in any of my memories, just stood and watched. But now he was moving, walking slowly down the hallway toward me. I ran to the bedroom and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely work my phone. I tried to call someone, anyone, but who would believe me? What would I even say? Then I understood. The figure was never watching my memories. He was watching me, the me who would find the door. He'd been there my entire life because he knew I would eventually see him there. He'd been waiting for this exact moment. I don't know how long I stayed in that bedroom. Hours, maybe. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. The door was still there, patient and silent. I should have left it closed. I knew that. But my hand was already reaching for it. I had to know. I had to see. I thought about now, the present moment. And I opened the door. I stepped through and saw myself standing in the hallway. I was looking at myself from the outside, watching myself stand there in my pajamas at 4 in the morning, staring at a door. But that wasn't right. I was looking at myself, which meant I wasn't myself anymore. I was something else, something watching. I tried to go back, but when I opened the door again, I was just in another version of the hallway, another now. I could see myself stepping through the door, watching myself stand in the hallway, a loop within a loop. Each time I went through the door, there was another layer, another version of myself, watching myself watch myself. The hallway multiplied, fractured, became a maze of present moments all stacked on top of each other. That's when I saw him, in one of the rooms. The figure, standing in a present moment hallway, waiting. He turned to face me. It was me, an older me, maybe 60, maybe 70. His face was lined and tired, but it was definitely my face, my eyes, my expression, worn down by decades of something I couldn't name yet. "I've been watching you your whole life," he said. His voice sounded like mine, aged and rough. "Waiting for you to find the door. Because I remember finding it. I remember being you. I remember this exact moment. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Do you understand yet?" he asked. "Do you see what we are? What comes next?" I finally managed to whisper. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No humanity left. "You never stop opening the door. You can't. You'll watch your life over and over, every moment, every second, forever. And one day, you'll be standing here, talking to yourself, watching yourself discover this. Because every moment exists forever, David. We're all trapped in every second we've ever lived, living them all at once. And now you know. You can't unknow it." "That's not possible," I said. "That's not how time works." "Isn't it?" He gestured around us. "How many versions of you do you think are standing in your 16-year-old kitchen right now? How many have come back to watch that Tuesday morning? How many of us are trapped in every second we've ever existed? I can leave. I can stop opening the door. Can you?" He took a step closer. "Then why are you still here? Why did you open it again when you knew something was wrong? Why will you open it again tomorrow night and the night after that and every night for the rest of your life?" I stumbled backward through the doorway, found myself in the hallway again. The real hallway, I thought, the present. But how could I know? How many layers deep was I? The door was still there. I stared at it for a long time. I thought about leaving the house, getting in my car and driving until I ran out of gas, never coming back, burning the whole place down. But I could still see it in my mind. That Tuesday morning, my 16-year-old self eating cereal, completely unaware that hundreds of versions of his future self were watching. Did he feel it? Did any version of me feel all those eyes on them, living their moments over and over forever? What about right now? How many versions of me were watching this moment? How many had already lived through this, standing in this hallway, having these thoughts, making this decision? My hand was on the door before I realized I'd moved. Just one more time, I thought. Just one more look. I needed to see my father again. I needed to go back to that Christmas when I was 7 and everything was still okay. I needed to watch myself learn to ride a bike, see my mother young again, hear my father's laugh. I opened the door. The thing is, I know what I'm doing. I know I'll never stop. I've read Uncle Gerald's journal. I've seen my older self. I know exactly where this leads. But I can't help it. Every moment I've ever lived is still happening. Every second exists forever, and I can visit them whenever I want. I can watch myself grow up over and over. I can see everyone I've ever lost. I can stand in the background of my own life and bear witness to every joy and pain and mundane Tuesday morning. I used to think the scariest part was being watched, that figure in the background of every memory, that older version of myself lurking at the edges of my existence. I was wrong. The scariest part is knowing that right now, in this moment, there are already hundreds of versions of me watching, future versions who found the door, who couldn't stop opening it, who came back to witness this exact second. They're standing in this hallway with me. I can't see them, but they're there. And one day, I'll be them. I'll come back to this moment and watch myself stand here, hand on the door, knowing what comes next, but opening it anyway. Every moment exists forever. Every second is a prison we can never leave, and I can't stop watching. The door is open. I can see my father's funeral again. I've watched it probably 50 times now, but maybe this time I'll notice something new. Maybe this time it'll hurt less. It never does. But I'll keep looking. I'll keep opening the door. Because now I know the truth. I'm not just living in the present. I'm living in every moment I've ever lived, all at once, forever. We all are. Every second of our existence is still happening somewhere, repeating endlessly, watched by infinite versions of ourselves who couldn't help but come back and look. Uncle Gerald tried to warn me in his journal. He knew I'd find the door because he'd been me. He'd made the same choices, opened the same door, fallen into the same trap. And one day, decades from now, I'll stand in this hallway and watch a younger version of myself discover the door for the first time. I'll see the hope in his eyes, the curiosity, the terrible hunger to see what's on the other side. I'll watch him take that first step through, and I won't warn him. I can't, because that moment already happened. It's happening right now. It will happen forever. And all I can do is watch. The door is waiting. It's always waiting. And I can't stop myself from opening it.